January 6th, 2021. Of course, that's what we all think of. But that's not where the real action was that day. You want to see something really scary?
If Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election.
Pursuant to the law, Chapter 1 of Title 3.
This is the closest our Constitution ever came to complete collapse. When one man's conscience saved America's claim to the word republic. For a time. Not institutions, not checks and balances. No. By this moment, those had already failed to protect us. Mike Pence alone spared us by doing the bare minimum. Counting correctly. Despite the risks he knew he would face, he did his constitutional duty, instead of going along with a criminal conspiracy to override the people's will with fake electoral votes. Yeah, fake. Yeah, criminal. They tried to get Mike Pence to rely on fraudulent electoral votes to choose the next president unilaterally. But you don't have to listen to me on this one. Listen to the people who took part in the months of scheming. We have the receipts. Uncomfortable. Unsound. Not valid. No good. Illegal. Dangerous for the Republic itself. Treasonous. What the President wanted. Fake. Sorry. Alternative. That was a lot, but most Americans have no idea how close we came. That's why I needed you to understand before you hear the rest. That was almost 5 years ago, and the comeuppance for the people who planned to silently end American democracy? Nothing. While they waited, we caught our breath and did nothing to stop them from trying again. And then those same people easily reclaimed the reins of power. The Constitution remains, but as January 6th made clear, it is structurally compromised. And that will be true no matter who we entrust it to. And the proven persistent threat of a constitutional crisis is itself a constitutional crisis. And there is only one solution when the Constitution becomes the crisis, an Article 5 Constitutional Convention. The Constitution's option for rewriting its own rules. A tool for the states to completely remake the federal government without asking its permission. But Article 5 only works if we remember its power, and if we can bind our fates together to wield it. I'm Know Nothing attorney, and I'm here because we need to talk about options we usually ignore because they have a reputation for being too difficult. But there comes a point when too difficult has to become merely difficult. And for the US Constitution, this is that point. Constitutional law is a body of law focused on the co-authored definition of a people's rights and the distribution of their joint power. I fell in love with constitutional law because I see it as our attempt to codify our best instincts, to improve our shared existence. That gives me a head start on explaining Article 5, but you don't need a law degree to understand it or use it. Article 5 was designed for the people, not lawyers. We're going to touch on some big ideas today, and some of them deserve their own videos in the future. But for right now, I just need to teach you the basics. Let me show you what Article 5 says. The Congress, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, what shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution, when ratified by 3/4 of the several states. If you're not keeping score, that's 34 states to call a convention, and 38 to ratify whatever comes out of it. And I mean whatever. Up to and including a complete rewrite of the Constitution. Heck, we've used it to make every major change to the government in American history. Women's right to vote, equal protection under the law, the abolition of slavery. Time and time again, Article 5 has taken the unrealistic and made it reality. There is no limit. The only thing explicitly protected from rewrite is equal representation of the states in the Senate. And when lawyers read law, there's a rule. The intentional inclusion of certain things means the intentional exclusion of all others. So when the founders noted only one exception to Article 5's power, the equal representation of the states in the Senate, it meant they intended the tool to be capable of quite literally anything else. And why wouldn't they? That's exactly what they were doing when they wrote it. Using a convention to factory reset their government. Don't forget, our current Constitution is the second one. When the founders saw that the Articles of Confederation were broken, they didn't enshrine the document as untouchable. No. They acknowledged it and replaced it with something better. And make no mistake, our system is broken. I'm going to show you exactly how it's broken, why Article 5 is the only solution, and why a constitutional convention is safer than we might think. Here's how it's supposed to work. The federal government was designed to have limited and separate powers. The courts ensure rights are protected and constitutional limits are upheld. Congress makes federal law. The president executes those laws faithfully, doesn't write them, doesn't ignore them, executes them as directed. Each branch checks the others. That's the design. That's not what we're watching unfold today. Let's look at 3 constitutional crises from recent history. Not hypotheticals, not exaggerations. Real violations of the constitutional order that should terrify every American equally, regardless of political affiliation. As I mentioned at the top, Donald Trump attempted to overturn the results of a Democratic election by substituting states' certified votes with fake ones for himself. While calling them patriots, Donald Trump pardoned approximately 1,500 people who participated in the storming of the Capitol on January 6th, including those that attacked law enforcement officers. Donald Trump demanded the indictment of James Comey, Adam Schiff, and Letitia James for investigating him, despite prosecutors in his own Justice Department finding insufficient evidence. These aren't isolated incidents. They're connected by a pattern. Constitutional assumptions that no longer hold. The Constitution assumes that duties will be carried out by honorable civil servants interested in the peaceful transfer of power. that pardons will serve justice, not self-interest, that the exercise of executive power be premised on evidence, not personal grudges. The Constitution was built on gentlemen's agreements, and there are few gentlemen left to maintain it. Together, these executive overreaches reveal what we're really dealing with. This is a Hydra problem. A Hydra has many heads, and I've only shown you 3. But the Trump administration is responsible for dozens more constitutional crises and violations. Seizing congressional appropriations, claiming unilateral authority to end federal programs, blocking congressional seats, dismantling congressionally mandated agencies, deploying federal troops in non-consenting states, politically antagonizing U.S. troops against civilians, politically purging military leadership, attempting to deny citizenship, cruel and unusual punishment, extrajudicial killing, dismantling federal oversight, allowing wealthy civilians to gut agents, purging the administration, purging scientists for refusing to support false legal, ignoring court orders, demanding oaths of loyalty, denying aid to U.S. territories, denying aid to U.S. states, attacking the free press, chilling free speech, purging the press corps, mass disinformation, targeting individuals based on targeting attacks on university funding, attacking state election processes, unilateral acts of war, extorting a foreign nation to investigate accepting foreign gifts, using public office for family profit, attempting to pay himself with taxpayer dollars, sowing doubt in the electoral process. If you think other presidents have done these things, to the limited extent you're correct, I'm glad you see the problem. And let this be a warning. If you think you're winning on one front, you're probably losing on 100 others. That's what it means to fight a Hydra. And here's the problem with fighting a Hydra. Cutting off heads doesn't kill it. Even if we remove every bad actor tomorrow, even if Trump leaves office, the constitutional holes remain. The blueprint for how to exploit them is now public. Project 2025, for instance, a policy framework designed to maximize executive power, exists with or without Trump. And traditional solutions, voting, protesting, prosecuting, are more important than ever. But they can't fix the underlying structural problems. They can only address symptoms. You can only beat a Hydra by changing the rules of the fight. We can take that lesson straight from Hercules. New rule, no more heads. For instance, if the president shows you that the pardon power can be used to excuse crimes committed to try to keep them in power, then you can make an amendment to take the pardon power away from the president. That's changing the rules. The point is this: don't play by the monster's rules. Make your own. That's what Article 5 does. It can close the constitutional vulnerabilities the bad actors exploited, and it can do even more than that. Article 5 changes everything. Let's see what fighting a Hydra looks like in action, using the most extreme possible scenario. First, I want us to take a moment to absorb this quote from Staff Sergeant Demi Palachek of the Illinois National Guard.
If you were activated to the Chicago mission, would you defy orders?
Absolutely. I would definitely say no.
Tell me why.
I mean, I'm not going to go against my community members, my family, and my culture, my neighbors.
Now imagine, the president turns the U.S. military against the American people under some flimsy claim to constitutional authority. The Supreme Court is divided. Congress, paralyzed. Our troops are supposed to reject unconstitutional orders. But their commander-in-chief is claiming supreme authority to interpret the Constitution.
I have an Article 2 where I have the right to do whatever I want as president.
What realistic option do they have to say no? Imagine instead that 38 states ratify an amendment stripping the president of authority to issue orders to their sons and daughters. No more heads. the president can only claim they have no right to do so. Now 2 sovereigns are claiming superior authority to interpret the Constitution, one of whom gave the other its power in the first place. And more importantly, in this scenario, our troops are no longer isolated. Their state, all the states, have given them a valid competing interpretation they can rely on. They have institutional backing to refuse orders, not by defying the Constitution, but by obeying it as interpreted by the sovereigns who created it. That's teeth. That's real backup. And with 2 powers claiming the loyalty of our defenders, who wins? Take another look at that quote. There is no such thing as a federal community, a federal family, federal culture, or federal neighbors. As much as we've lost sight of it, we are all statespeople at the end of the day. I know where I'd put my money. Article 5 can bring federal power to heal.
Yes, Ms. Woods.
But know nothing, I hear you say. Can't a constitutional convention go off the rails? What if extremists capture it? Shouldn't we be afraid of this option? Let's get that straight right now. No. But I'll tell you what you should be scared of. 5 Supreme Court justices already willing to throw out decades-old rights on a whim, with other rights next in line. Or 1 president already consolidating legislative, judicial, and executive power beyond his office without consequence. Now don't get me wrong, I understand the concern. Article 5 is frighteningly powerful. What's to stop it from going wrong? Simple math. Check this out. 38 states to ratify. That means it takes more than just radicals to pose any threat. It would take 38 radical states. States whose powers are being taken from them at this moment. Let's test the theory. Can you think of 13 states that would never ratify a radical constitution on either side of the fence? If you were in the blue corner, for instance, did you think of any of these? Red corner? Neither extreme can win. It doesn't look so dangerous now, does it? A constitutional convention requires actual negotiation and compromise over some pretty existential stuff. Once we get down to the fundamentals of governance, the system, not the outcomes, you'd be surprised how many people you usually disagree with suddenly become very reasonable, regardless of affiliation. Conservatives and liberals, neither one is essentially radical. There are even times we remember how to be neighbors to one another. And let's face it, we are in a very fragile and possibly brief moment where your historical political enemies, they stand to be your allies. Rational people on both sides want the madness to stop. We may not get another chance like this. A window where both sides see the system is broken and want structural change. We need to use it and trust each other to take our power back from the radical elements abusing it. And the best place to build that trust is in our local communities, because that's where real power lies. If you pull back the curtain between yourself and the government, you'll see that states are just collections of local communities. Our communities. We have real power there. And if you walk away from this video with just one idea, let it be this: an idea that captures the very spirit of the Article 5 Constitutional Convention. The American federal government is nothing more than a convenient shared fiction of the several states. And when it ceases to be convenient, the states may replace it with something that is convenient. That's right. The president, the federal government,
I do not like them, Sam, I am.
they aren't the rightful holders of American power. They are agents, custodians, and when the states demand they return it, it is no longer theirs to withhold. So look to the states. It is much easier for us to wield power when it is close at hand. And if we can find the strength to move these individual United States together, there is no end to what we can achieve. Hear me out. So far, I've only talked about the things we need Article 5 to stop. But there's so much forward-thinking good it could do that we could never do without it. The obvious. Federal restraints, clarification of rights, reorganization. Sure. But what about other things almost all of us can agree on? Congressional term limits, judicial term limits, age limits for federal office, an end to congressional stock trading, real anti-gerrymandering standards, campaign finance reform. Do you think the people in power now will just give you those? With Article 5, you don't need them to. And what about some other possibilities that are likely impossible without a convention? Personal data ownership, representation for Americans in DC and Puerto Rico, positive rights, ranked choice voting. With a constitutional convention, not only are these things possible, they're suddenly tame and approachable. The things we already agree on become achievable. And the power to make it happen is closer than you think. In your state legislature, in your community, in you. Article 5 doesn't have to be a distant dream. It's a tool the founders meant for us to use. And it's long past time we take them up on it. All right, let me get personal for a minute. I'm not pitching something quick or easy. I have no illusions about that. Realistically, we're talking years, a decade, more. But we're facing what may be a very long, hard road ahead of us. And we have two choices. Get dragged down that road kicking and screaming, or start building our off-ramp now. So here's what I propose. Consider whether you would do the work to protect what matters to you. For me, that's my daughter and the world I want her to inherit. The one I always dreamed of as a kid. Now ask yourself, would you be willing to do that work for a decade? Good. Now never think about that decade again, because you need this tomorrow. So today, you work. Today, and today, and today. A month ago, I had no equipment, no platform, knew exactly one of my neighbors. So I made myself this promise. Every day I can, I build community. And every day, even when I can't, I do something to pursue this goal. And I know that sounds tough. You have a lot going on. And if you're anything like me, you're scared, angry, exhausted. Don't do that alone. Let me not do that alone with you. Because we're building this together. And don't stop with me. You don't need special qualifications. Just talk to your neighbor. Build community, because that's the first thing that Article 5 needs. And I know that sounds weird today, but most people want to connect. Many have just forgotten how. So just start there. And in a future video, I'll tell you how we get from there to the convention. If you want to know just one piece, something I'm calling the Annapolis Initiative, after the 1786 convention where the states coordinated before drafting the Constitution. And I think it only needs something like 26 states, not 34. Want to know how that many states can make a difference? Subscribe. Join the Discord in the channel description. Join a live stream and tell me why I'm wrong about any of this. Share the video, because we're building this together, and that means I need you too. I'm no nothing attorney, and as you will always hear me say, I'm proud of you. I don't need to know you for that to be real. You deserve to hear it, because life is hard. It's always been hard, and it always will be hard. And the way you face every day the way you do is remarkable. So stay remarkable, and I'll see you at the convention. See you next time. Thanks for being here for my first video. I didn't know a thing about any of this when I started. Editing, streaming, any of that. So it's been a learning experience, and I have some people to thank. I couldn't have chosen a harder goal to pursue, but I refuse to let that make this miserable. This channel is going to be about serious work and having fun while we do it. Constitutional education, sure, but also community, conversation, maybe some chaos. We are building the plane while we fly it. I don't have all the answers, and that's kind of the point. There's a lot we've been putting up with our whole lives, things that can and should end with us. So I hope you'll join me and help write that future, because no one will do it until someone decides to, and that can be us. I'm streaming every day while I build this community, so come argue with me. Come tell me I'm wrong. Come give me ideas. Come be part of something. I'll see you in the Discord, and I'll see you at the convention. Stay remarkable.